Hey everyone, and welcome to Follow the White Rabbit, where we go down the rabbit hole to explore the intersection of privacy, human rights, technology, and democracy. I'm your host, Alex Kahaya, and today we're speaking with Aibek Eisengulov. Aibek is the co-founder of Horizon Systems, where he and his team are building Unstoppable Wallet. He previously founded and sold MakeUseOf.com, which was one of the largest online technology publications on the web. Aibek and his team have worked with a number of projects in the space, and I'm excited to speak with him today. Aibek, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
So, I'd love to start off just getting to know you a little bit better. Maybe could you please just share with me how you got to where you are today and working on Unstoppable Wallet and in decentralized technologies?
hmm so I basically started my entrepreneurial journey back in college. It was like 2003 or 5. I was studying applied mathematics and computer science in Germany, and that's how I discovered web back then, basically. So I my initial kind of experiments started with trying to kind of make a living on it. And so over the 3 years that I spent in college, I was basically like trying to do stuff on the web. And that's like how I got into the tech, basically. And sort of when I finished my college, or towards the end of my studies, I was already doing pretty well. I haven't really built something big, but I was experimenting with a lot of small scale things. And it was basically working well, and it kind of solved the issue of looking for a job for me. So I graduated. I just stayed in Europe, and yeah, started to kind of dig further. And then I moved to Denmark. So and maybe towards 2005 or 6, I was trying, like the Web 2.0 been starting up, and a lot of like new projects were coming up, and I was already in the loop sort of, and I like started to get more serious and try to, well, I was kind of looking for myself, I wasn't sure what I want to do. I was certain that I don't want to like work in some like tech startup, be it a Google or Yahoo. So I was just trying to find myself. And around that time, I went to India, like to Bangalore. It was like used to be known, or maybe still is, I don't know, to be honest. So as Indian Silicon Valley. So I wasn't like keen on going to Silicon Valley as such because, well, yeah, for different reasons. But so I basically choose India. And I went to India, and that's where I kind of started to building on some like bigger projects, and I worked on a few startups. The first one failed, like maybe for like 6 months I worked on it, and there were a few people working with me that I actually hired those people in India. Um, and then like when it kind of failed, and I was, well, trying to kind of yeah, get over it and think what to do next, I actually started to write a blog, because the blogging was also an emerging thing back then. Like maybe in 2006 or 7, I think there was like a blogspot platform. So it sounds so like so dated now, yeah. But yeah, it was a new thing. So I was kind of trying it out, that new thing, and that experiment kind of turned into writing about emerging interesting tools that people use on the web. So I was not writing about startups, but I was kind of writing about things they do, about new different websites that were coming up. Basically, that's what was it all about. People were kind of hungry for information. They were looking for anything interesting, and that started to attract a lot of readers. And like in pretty much in about a year of doing that, yeah, well, I kind of started basically blogging, yeah, and that's how my user started. And I spent my first 5 years working on it full time. It gave me an opportunity to monitor whatever is going on the web, and I was passionate about web stuff in general, like the idea of of an internet-based something, be it a game community or a startup, really kind of resonated with me. So I was like while growing Make Use of, I was also kind of gaining a lot of information of what's really happening on the web. So and that continued maybe till 2013, 14. The site was already big, and I was, to be honest, like not very well. After 5 years, I kind of got bored out of it, and it was big. It had like 50 people maybe working on it. So I decided to move on, and I basically hired like a new CEO for the website, and shifted my focus to something completely different. And in 2014, I started like a software company, basically, where we were building messaging applications. WhatsApp was a new thing back then, like so it's people were not really used to messengers back then, and we had an idea that you can that web forums as we know it, like those web-based forum boards, that they will not survive for long. So we were thinking what kind of interface they are going to have on the mobile. I mean, we were basically thinking that forums are not user friendly, and having something like that on the mobile would be better. So we had this idea of building basically a messenger application, but for everyone. If WhatsApp or Telegram is your messaging application for people in your contacts list, we wanted to have a messaging application which would be where you would be basically connecting with people based on your interests. So, Telegram is such an application now, but it wasn't such an application back then. So, and that's what we wanted to do. And we spent like 3 years on that project. At some point during our career, we kind of pivoted from the B2 consumer to B2 business sector, where we were basically making messaging applications for closed communities. For a university, for example, we had some clients, a couple of universities, which were using our application to have an internal, well, it was an addition, sort of an upgrade to the email list they had. So, and that's what we were been doing till 2017. And in 2017, our corporate bank account got frozen, along with, like, as I later found out, like along with other 30,000 bank accounts. And long story short, it was due to some geopolitical stuff, and bank apparently did something wrong somewhere. So later they basically had to make stricter guidelines to their clients, or I don't know. So our company was based in Hong Kong, and our account was based in Hong Kong, and they were basically stopped serving all companies that were based in Hong Kong. And what this kind of what really happened at that time, we didn't have a lot of money, but I kind of realized that if we had a lot of cash on the account, and if we had a lot of clients that are paying us at the same time, a lot of clients that are expecting us to pay them, that, I mean, just if we were a highly profitable startup, basically, having something like that could really break your business, because your operations basically stop when someone like freezes your bank account, a corporate one. So that's kind of we had to reconsider a few things when that happened, like ideologically, because there was an understanding that basically you can build anything you want, and you can pursue anything you want, but at the same time, it's not the success of that idea, or is not really is not censorship resistant, or may I say, it's easy to kind of discontinue it, or there may be a lot of factors which are outside of your control, which can impact its existence or working.
And what was the sorry? Can you repeat? What was the reason why they locked the accounts? Why did that happen?
Okay, well, that's basically I started researching, right? And there was like a Telegram groups with basically where the people like us, and there were like thousands of them to be honest, were trying to find a solution. I wasn't really uh, very concerned about it because as I have said, we had like maybe 30 or 40,000 there. Like it's not a lot of money, but there were people who had fairly large mid-sized businesses, and their like full operations were impacted as a result. So we were communicating, trying to find out what was the reason, because bank doesn't have to disclose anything to you, right? Your banker basically tell us like we got an email and they say that okay, your account is frozen, and that was like very surprising because it was just opened like 3 months back, and to open it I had to travel to another country to like to do a lot of things that takes a lot of time and provide a lot of documents, right? So uh, but then I found out basically it's politics. It's some geopolitics stuff, and I don't want to like go into it, but a bank basically might have served someone or a company that was violating some sanctions, and as a result, they fined the bank, and the bank like did some reorganization and risk management, and perhaps decided to kind of discontinue the service for a lot of high risk customers, or I don't know, something like that. They don't tell, right? So we ultimately had to guess, but to be honest, the reason is not important because uh, we didn't do anything illegal, right? There was like, as an IT guy, you build stuff, right? You just you build stuff. You don't care about politics or something. But when such things happens, you kind of start to think about it more. So uh, that incident with the bank kind of made me look into Bitcoin again. And I actually forgot to mention that I looked into it back in 2014, right before we started right when we started in the messaging app. But it was like, a lot of things were going on, so it kind of didn't get the needed attention. So I spent some time maybe like reading articles about it, but I never really had a chance to analyze the technology and evaluate it and to see its implications. So, but when this happened, it kind of rang a bell. So, and that's when we started looking into Bitcoin. And in 2017, we kind of, we gave a few months to our existing clients. Our contracts allowed us to discontinue the service. So, and we shortly after, like almost immediately, within 1 week, we were full-time studying Bitcoin. It was in
That's a massive pivot.
2017. Yeah, it was. It was. And if we were, we were making some like money, but we were not like hugely successful, I would say, right? So it was not a decision where you have to give up a lot of profits just to shift, but the realization that whatever you have may be easily stopped or just like stop functioning for no reason at all, or for no way for you to kind of challenge that, made us realize that this technology has a lot of applications and is very timely. So we started looking into it in 2017, and last 3 years we have been working on it full time. It actually right now it's very hard to find anything motivating, to be honest, to work on if it's not about open blockchains or permissionless ledgers, because there is just so much ideas you can build in a centralized manner. So if you want to build like world-changing ideas, right? The blockchain is a perfect place to kind of deliver that. It's a good technology, basically.
Like your story is incredible because so to be honest, you're the first. I'm sure this has happened to other people, but you're the first entrepreneur that I've spoken with who had a centralized bank do what they did. Basically, luckily you didn't have that much money in that account, but you realized that when that account got locked, that the centralized control really impacted you. And you have a decentralized organization, right? People all over the world in many different countries, like working with you, and just the realization that centralization could cause you to not be able to operate and build your life and build your company, and then just making that pivot, like that's a really incredible transition. As you started researching and working full time on this, what thinking led you to, there's so much, like you said, there's so much opportunity, right? So many things you could build, but you chose to build, the website's unstoppable.money, and it's the Unstoppable Wallet, which is an open source wallet for holding cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin being one of them. What led you to do that? What was your thinking in your research? Why did you pick that idea to work on?
The wallet choice was not, it was the most obvious one if you are to kind of study the technology, right? And we were quite active in software field like for the 3 years until 2017. And when we started like working in the blockchain, the very first priority became to kind of onboard ourselves and to, spend a couple of months like trying to figure out how everything works here, right? So building a wallet was the very obvious, in our case, idea to kind of, if you like want to learn how Bitcoin works, build a light client. That's what we did basically. And we spent maybe 6 months or so on this, but at the same time, after we finished that, we had a really good understanding of the of all capabilities of the Bitcoin blockchain. Then we did the same for Ethereum. With the Ethereum, we didn't actually finalize the product. It had to be paused because of the Ethereum 2.0. We decided to postpone a bit. But the idea is that kind of if you want to learn the blockchain, build a wallet, because from technological point of view, any application is any decentralized application is a wallet under the inside. Yeah, because wallet is like an ID. So when you build a wallet, you're kind of building a backend, let's call it backend for your dApp. So where you have your ID and stuff like that. So that's why we choose to build a wallet, and
And you've made some really interesting decisions about your wallet. It's open source. I believe it's GPL licensed, or maybe MIT. I can't remember, but
MIT.
Why did you decide to go with open source for your technology, and like what's your business model? How do you guys sustain yourselves?
Okay, so blockchain tech in general, it's open source tech because all of the blockchains which are like major ones, they are open and they're public, they're permissionless. So it's sort of like, and when we build stuff, we also used a lot, we basically used a lot of the work that other people did, which was also open source, right? So it was reasonable to have an open source product, right? But in our case specifically, so we thought that at some point in the future, like in a few years from that moment when we started, we would be looking for a way to raise funds or like launch a DAO or anything basically that we any of the available fundraising means on a blockchain, right? So, and when that happens, having a proof of work sort of that we spent a sort of certain amount of time and years building something that can be traced back to each day and week would be beneficial. And that's what we did. So right now it's like 2021, and we have like 3.5 years of consistent documented work that we did, which is like traceable on the GitHub, which is cool. So that was another aspect of this. But at the same time, we did realize that when you build an open source project, that your business model has to well, take into account that someone may easily replicate and take your product and just like make some minor change and release it as his own. So we were aware of that, but at the same time, we had an understanding that it's, well, when you take a sophisticated product, even if it's open source, it's not very easy to run it, even if you are like, even if you are a company like Facebook and I have like a lot of engineers. If those people built it, that's another story. But if they didn't, it would be very hard for them to kind of take it further and iterate fast and do like change things as they would like to.
Yeah, they'd be better off just hiring you to port it to their user base and give you some kind of incentive to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we actually had some like people forking our wallet for their own ideas, and they would approach us and sometimes hire us like to help them out with customizations and stuff like that, or even to consult them just like that. So.
And what is your wallet? It's non-custodial, right?
Yeah. It's
yeah. So that means do you want to maybe just explain what that means to people, non-custodial, and why it's important?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just tell you like how our wallet is different and what are the principles of a good wallet. Yeah, so that it's like clear for everyone. Most of the wallets that people use right now are, well, for the most part, they're custodial. Basically, it's exchange wallets for many people. Exchange wallet is not a real wallet. It shows you that you have some funds, but it's not. It doesn't have those principles that you get with the real wallet. And those principles being that you don't control your crypto. You have, you can be basically locked out from your account easily. And yeah, so those are custodial wallets. Non-custodial wallet is built in a way where you may be locked out from an app, but at the same time, you cannot be ever locked out from your crypto. I mean, you can always restore it on some other wallet and spend it there, right? And so that's like non-custodial wallet. But at the same time, there are a lot of other things in wallet apps, specifically, which are which needs to be taken into account, like data privacy, for instance. And a lot of non-custodial wallets may expose your data. And yeah, I mean, privacy is a spectrum. Like being 100% private is not easy, but being private enough is easy. I mean, it's not very difficult, and not all wallets that are being built stick to those principles because it's just easier not to stick to them. I mean, when you build a software, it's an expensive process, and unless you are obsessed with something or internally would like to actually have a private product, you would kind of go with that. But otherwise, it's not it's not a cheap decision for the developers, and it often requires more talent, more work, more research and stuff. So in our case, we try to build a wallet which is private. It still has its own issues. I mean, it's not 100% private. I mean, we don't know nothing about our users, but at the same time, let's say if a user opens a wallet app in some country which tracks all the internet traffic, and this specific country is not very like friendly to crypto, So there are some ways, to kind of keep users safe. Like, for example, if you route everything in the wallet app through a Tor connection or a VPN connection, so that would work. But again, it needs to be built.
Do you guys do that? Do you already have that integration built in?
Mm-hmm. We have Tor. On Android, it's working right now and it's in production. On iOS, it's in development stage, and we right now exploring in R&D state, we are thinking of integrating decentralized VPN solution.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's super important. And, there's a couple things I want to touch on. One, the concept that you articulated about non-custodial versus custodial is important for people to understand because it has pretty big implications. And it's a theme of Web3 in general. In this case, it's about money, right? And it's about having control over my money and it's about having the ability to very easily, well, I wouldn't say it's easy yet, but if you know how to do it, you can take your money to a different application. So like very easily you can port your wallet using your seed phrases over to some other wallet, for whatever
Yeah,
reason. Like if unstoppable.money, the site got blocked or the app got taken off the store, you'd be able to take it to a different app and still have
yeah,
access. Versus if you're on something like Coinbase, which is a custodial wallet, if Coinbase gets locked out, then that money is just there, and you can't really take it with you. And if you want to take that to the next level, think about these forums and messaging apps that you worked on for Web 2.0. There's this concept of platform risk and it's not easy to just de-platform, right? Like if you're on Twitter and you have all these followers and you have all this content there, you can't just take it with you to another platform. You have to start from scratch. And that's making it so that you have more control and ownership over your money, which in this case is the same thing as data. It's synonymous with data, and you can take it to another platform. Is like a really important and impactful piece of this industry. I wonder, I don't know, I just wonder in general what your thoughts are on that, and if you could speak to that a little bit. And then I think just some more examples around privacy and how the things you do differently would be really cool to talk about as well. Like you mentioned routing your traffic through Tor or a VPN or a decentralized VPN like Orchid potentially.
yeah.
What are some of the other pieces of your app that help to try to protect privacy? So that's two
Hmm.
areas of topic areas.
Hmm. Uh, well, I think we right now work on a wallet, and it's been like that last 3 years. I mean, we do some things in parallel, but still most of our resources are on the wallet itself. Uh, but at the same time, we are very actively researching and like spending a lot of time playing around with other blockchains that are out there, like Solana, Polkadot, Cosmos. I mean, there are a lot of solid, good projects like happen at this very moment, and they're all being developed. And it's very, I mean, hard to choose or even know which one of them going to remain or become the next Ethereum, or let's say, or like, I don't know, be as big as Ethereum. Uh, we try to study all of them. I mean, at least those that we find attractive, and there are still a lot of them. But the basic idea, the reason we do that, for example, right now we understand how the money works on the blockchain, right? So how you move value from one user to another. But at the same time, there are issues, and scalability is being one. So, but this is being addressed, let's say, right? And on the other hand, what you have is that we don't have the same infrastructure for moving messages, for keeping some, well, we have emerging infrastructure for keeping user data in a decentralized manner, but solutions we tried so far, well, some of them work, some of them are going to work, but still you don't have a very easy solution to store users' data in a decentralized manner and serve it to the user like in a very small amount of time, So the reason we do that and the reason we monitor is we kind of envision that at some point in the near future, maybe a year or two from now, that we will go far beyond the financial side of this, like decentralized blockchains. We are likely going to see a lot more social apps being built. There are some already. They're just like very web-based tools, but they work to some extent. But I'm sure, like in a couple of years, there will be a lot of apps that look and feel like the popular apps we used to right now, but at the same time they'll be built on a decentralized ledger. And what that would achieve, it would provide users with data ownership. Well, at first they'll have guaranteed property rights, right? So if you're collecting donates on some decentralized Patreon, There is no one that can kind of freeze your account and ask you like for something. You kind of guaranteed to have your funds as soon as a person sends you a donate. So
Yeah, we can. Hey, let's talk about that one a little more because I have another example that's related to that. So you were talking about
cool.
decentralized version of Patreon, right? Which is a project you
Yeah,
told me about.
yeah.
You guys are working on, which is really cool. And Patreon is something that so I could use it for this podcast. I don't have it, but for this podcast, I could have a Patreon account. Listeners could donate, money or whatever, and they get special access to, my guests or me or some other or like swag. There's a whole lot of different kind of rewards you could do for belonging to that group. And a decentralized version would just give me more control over that, right? It would allow me to control the money, whereas like Patreon can just lock me out. And there's another interesting example that's just like that, which is with Kickstarter. I have a friend of mine in Santa Barbara who has launched several really successful Kickstarter campaigns, and they have been locked out of their funds before. I'm talking like hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars.
Sucks.
And they were able to get that money out, but as it's a similar situation as when you're talking about with the bank, right? For a startup, especially that is using that money to bootstrap their business, to not have access to it when they've already raised the money and have made plans on executing against that capital, to have those funds frozen for some reason is really difficult. And those policies are pretty opaque and hard to understand, and there's not really any recourse. And so platforms like the decentralized versions of these platforms, I think, would just give the users, both the people who contribute funds and the people who are raising the funds, more control over that resource.
Certainly.
So, and I think things like DAOs, right? You mentioned a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, right? Could be used to help manage what happens with those funds.
Certainly. Yeah.
There's all sorts of interesting research into that space that I think is going to be cool to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, we already have everything that's needed, for example, to be, and everyone has access to this, to build a decentralized version of Patreon. I mean, it may not have all the features Patreon has, but the main ones, even the look and feel can be even better. So, I mean, I really think it's a matter of time, and I think a lot of people probably building various decentralized alternatives to Twitter right now and to Patreon probably. Well, as well, we already know about things like decentralized alternative to YouTube. So there is one. I haven't checked on it for a while, but
I think there's is it, LivePeer? LivePeer is one.
Yeah, LivePeer, for example, is a good technology to stream your video. So, for example, you can build a decentralized app that has streaming using LivePeer tech, and basically what it means that you don't need some backend infrastructure to kind of process your streaming. So
have you experimented with that technology at all? Just curious.
No, not yet. Actually, I actually found out about it last week. I probably heard about it a while back because it's an old project, but to kind of actively started looking into it last week because, a friend of mine sent me the link and I saw that they have a lot of nodes running on the network. So that kind of got my attention, and but we are not really familiar with it very like on a close level.
I know people over there, so I can connect you to them if you want.
Awesome. That would be cool because So with the Patreon, I think it's a matter of time because what happens right now, well, I'm not a political guy. I'm just like an entrepreneur building stuff. But sometimes I hear stuff, right? And like people going crazy when like Twitter blocks Trump's account or something else happens, So there is a lot of debate about what's the right way to do things, right? And for an engineer, I think, the only way to kind of have some kind of democratic software is to have it on a blockchain, and ultimately I think these platforms will just either reemerge, either will put their own investments into having kind of make this transition, or buy someone out I don't know, not all projects are built in a DAO way, right? You know, you still can build something in a decentralized manner, but control it through a small group. So such technology, for example, can be like also sold to them, and they can, well, basically, I think that it's unavoidable that there will be decentralized version of the Twitter, I don't know, you name it, chat application, YouTube, because people don't like being tracked right now. And it's a fact that all of us are being tracked, and some people are fine with it, but more and more people realize that, well, so much of information being gathered about them that, like, for example, you hear people, well, I hear people sometimes saying that they speak about snowboards, right? And then they talk to someone about snowboard, then they go and see like an ad on Instagram about the snowboard, you know. So a lot of things like that happen right now, and I think ultimately the business model where data is being collected and sold will die out, and yeah, when it's die out, centralized systems basically will not really will not be mainstream, sort of. I mean, if you take out all the biggest social apps from the big tech, well, there is not much that's left. So yeah, Gmail, Google is like search, YouTube, email, a number of apps, right? So when all of those apps become like when all of those communities and those apps migrate to decentralized alternative, well, they'll be losing a lot of audience. And I in a way think it's a matter of time and it will happen, because it's just so much of people are working on so many things, different things, and there is a fear that something may get regulated and get banned, but at the same time you realize that, well, it's one thing to ban something, it's another to enforce something. And well, it's one thing to say that something needs to be banned or illegal, it's another thing to enforce that ban. And with what we have on the blockchain right now, it's a kind of too late to do anything about it. From the if someone decides to ban it, it's just too late. So yeah, and
Yeah, better
and to
better
be
to
honest,
find ways to work with it than to just
yeah,
ban it.
yeah, it's very hard kind of to think how someone can prevent someone from running some software, right? It's because that's what blockchain is ultimately is. Everyone runs a piece of software, so, and it's same, it keeps same database on every copy. So
What are
yeah.
you in your team, just out of curiosity, what are you, I mean, I know you're working on this decentralized Patreon idea, but what are you and your team most excited about in the next like 2 years from a technology standpoint, for Unstoppable Wallet and in general?
In general, we think that next 2 years going to be a lot about like privacy, uh, like blockchain privacy, and well, a lot of people talk about non-fungible tokens, NFTs. So we think that there are a lot of applications to those concepts like
What are some
NFTs and
examples with NFTs?
uh, well, for example, you can like take a community, let's say some popular like baseball or basketball or UFC or whatever, you know, any community that has a lot of audience, fan base, maybe some large subreddit, and uh, and the famous people in that community, if it's like a basketball player can mint their cards, you know, some kind of collectibles, digital collectibles. So I personally see a lot of interest in this because, well, I think digital goods are here, like, are going to be the big thing because, well, obviously people like to collect stuff, and people often collect stuff that they are kind of affiliated with emotionally. You know, if you really like some kind of sportsman, you know, you would kind of contribute. Sometimes you would go like his post, you know. Basically, you have this attachment, you know. That's why we have like football fans, you know, like crazy guys and stuff like this. So, and I think that basically NFTs will provide a good monetization model for the people that are either popular or provide some kind of service online. Right now, this monetization model happens through some kind of third party. So in case of Patreon, it's like Patreon is a third party. In case of, let's say, websites on the web, they are being monetized through Google for the most part, and maybe Amazon. So these two biggest advertising providers for those. So I think that NFTs are applicable in that regard. I mean, there are a lot of ways to kind of explain what are those collectibles are. Digital art is one of them, but essentially it's a piece of information, a token, let's say, just like a cryptocurrency token we are used to, but it has some uniqueness. I mean, it's connected to some user. It may have some kind of time expiration on it. So it's a lot up to the imagination of the people who design apps around it. The point I try to make that is that this NFT concept is kind of solidified and it's here, and we already have now a lot of, well, not a lot of, but a number of fairly good projects building stuff on top of that concept. Yeah,
I want to
like
talk about this a
yours,
little bit more. So I was a little bit skeptical about NFTs when I first heard about them like a few years ago. I remember the first time I saw one, I was at ETH Denver, which is my favorite conference in this space. I've been to a lot of them, and ETH Denver is like definitely one of the best ones. And there was Super Rare was one of the companies there. So Super Rare is like an online marketplace for digital artwork that uses NFTs to identify who owns that piece of art. And one way to think about it is like you can have an original Picasso hanging in a museum and a bunch of copies all over the world that people can buy and hang in their house, but that original is the only one and it's hanging in a museum. And in digital artwork, you can display copies of the same art, but there's really only one cryptographic signature that proves which one of those is the actual original or from like a limited supply. And part of so that's one piece of it. And the other part of it for me is that it may not be a tangible asset, but you do own it. And the reason the thing that made me connect with the fact that I owned it is because I purchased this little piece of art. It was a bufficorn, like a buffalo unicorn that this 8-year-old girl made. Her dad was one of the more prolific artists on Super Rare, and he got her to display a piece of artwork of hers at the conference. And I'm a former educator. I used to teach high school and middle school kids, and so I have a really soft spot for kids when they produce stuff like that. So I bought that piece of art, and I had it on Super Rare, and because it's on Ethereum, and because I owned the keys to that, I was able to display that piece of art on Super Rare and on Rarible and on OpenSea. These are all different marketplaces where you can buy and sell and trade these digital assets. And it was for me, when I was able to take it from one platform to another one really easily, that's when I made the connection that I actually owned that piece of art, right? And I eventually sold it. I bought it for like $40, and some dude offered me $1,000 for it like 2 years later. And the other cool thing is that programmatically, that girl gets like 10% every time someone trades it. So she made a little extra money. She just collected a little extra money when that got bought. But yeah, I think I agree with you. This NFTs, digital artwork. So there's the ownership piece. There's also the censorship resistance of it, right? Like it can't be burned, right? It's not a physical piece of art that can be burned. And as long as there's servers running this code that secures Ethereum and displays these images, that art will exist somewhere and be displayed. One of the projects I'm working on the side for fun is this idea of a unstoppable internet art installation. I think I told you about this, where I'm Armenian, and so I want to display art that represents the Armenian genocide and host it on IPFS. Anyway, it's just an idea I'm working on. But we're about 45 minutes into the show, and I kind of always end with the same question. What have I not asked you that I should have asked, or that you wanted to talk about?
I'll just like think for a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a few notes I took for myself. Yeah, I would like to talk about DeFi a bit.
Okay,
It's
let's do
DeFi
it.
specifically, yeah? Like what are the issues there and things we're trying to do in that regard?
Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah.
Tell me
Uh,
about it.
yeah. Yeah. So right now, we we are looking into DeFi like closely, basically trying to understand all the protocols and what kind of people are using them, like how much value is being converted. And I mean, there are so many of them, right? So it's we're just trying to make sense of it, of all of it. And at the same time, we realize that for anyone that's coming from traditional finance background, uh, especially investors, it's very hard right now to make this transition and to kind of even if they believe in crypto and even if they understand it, it's still hard to make this kind of transition where they're comfortable in comfortably investing in the things they want to invest in. And to kind of help with that, we were thinking that crypto misses some kind of analytics or discovery tab for DeFi and crypto in general. So in the coming like update for the wallet, we plan on we plan on launching a website and at the same time adding a new tab to the wallet app. Basically, we call it markets, but yeah, the idea is just a discovery tab which provides anyone, well, not anyone, but specifically someone who is serious about investing into crypto, well, in our opinion, an easier way to kind of browse, sort, filter. We are right now like building our own ranking algorithm for the crypto, and for example, we can like feed into our algorithm like a bunch of coins, and it will tell you like what are the how decentralized coin ownership in that particular token is, for example. At the same time, we watch the liquidity for the token on an exchange. So when you combine a lot of those factors for some particular coin, it's a fairly easy way to say whether that project is a pure speculation or a quality one. So we build that. We are working on building that rating too, and within a few weeks we are actually planning to release it. So we think that that feature that we are going to release on the website will be probably the one of the better ways that are available right now to kind of for anyone interested in crypto, and there are a lot of people, right? So to kind of discover new projects, to see what's to kind of find things that they would like to invest in, because it's very hard for someone coming from traditional backgrounds to look anywhere beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum. So those two are very popular. There is a lot of content on those two, and at the same time, they are more or less safe, right? I mean, they've been online for a while. They went through audits and stuff, right? But when it comes to the rest, well, certainly there are a couple of dozens of good ones, right? But at the same time, there are hundreds and hundreds non-safe ones, abandoned ones, right? And pure scams at the same time. So we want to make it easy for someone who is not technical, but have an understanding of finance to be able to find quality projects. So.
Very cool. Yeah, that's definitely a big issue, and I think it's going to be really interesting to follow your progress there. Well, Aibek, we're at the top of the show here, so we're going to call it a day. But thank you so much for being on, and I appreciate your
Thank you.
time.